Read White Nights by Dostoyevsky with me. I have been going through a slump. I've been trying to read a lot these past few days, but for some reason I just can't. So I really thought this would be a good way for us to interact and for me to make content and just do a reading vlog. Right, so let's get started. You can take out your copies if you have, otherwise, you can turn on the captions of the video and just read along. White Nights, a sentimental love story from the memoirs of a dreamer. Or was his destiny from the start to be put just one moment near your heart? The first night. It was a wonderful night, the kind of night, dear reader, which is only possible when we are young. The sky was so starry, it was such a bright sky, that looking at it, you could not help but ask yourself, is it really possible for bad-tempered and capricious people to live under such a sky? That is also a young person's question, dear reader, a very young person's question, but may the Lord ask it of your heart more often. Speaking of capricious and suddenly bad-tempered gentlemen, I could not help but recall my own commendable conduct throughout the whole day. From the early morning, an astonishing melancholy had started to torment me. It suddenly seemed that I, so alone, was being abandoned by everyone, that everyone was deserting me. Well, of course, anyone is entitled to ask, who is everyone? Because I've been living in Petersburg 8 years now and I've hardly been able to make a single acquaintance. But what do I need acquaintances for? I'm acquainted with all of Petersburg as it is. That's why it seemed to me that everyone was abandoning me when all of Petersburg suddenly up and left for their Duchess. I was terrified of being left alone, and for 3 whole days I wandered about the city in a state of deep melancholy, not understanding in the least what was happening to me. No matter whether I went to Nevsky Prospect or the park or wandered along the embankment, there wasn't a single person of those whom I have been accustomed to meet for a year now in the same place at a certain time. Of course, they don't know me, but I know them. I know them intimately. I have practically learned their faces by heart, and I admire them when they are cheerful, and am crestfallen when they grow sad. I almost struck up a friendship with a certain old man whom I meet every blessed day and at a certain hour on the Fontanka. His face is so dignified and thoughtful. He is always whispering under his breath and gesticulating with his left hand. When his right hand he holds a long gnarled walking stick with a golden knob. He even noticed me and shows a cordial concern for me. Should it happen that I'm not at the same place on the Fontanka at a certain hour, I'm positive that he would be crestfallen. That's why we sometimes almost greet each other, particularly when we're both in a good mood. The other day, when we had not seen each other for 2 whole days and met on the 3rd day, we almost reached for our hats, but thank goodness we came to our senses in time, lowered our hands and passed each other by in sympathy. I also have houses that are my acquaintances. As I walk, it's almost as if each one I come to run out on the street in front of me, looks at me with the windows wide open and almost says, "Hello, how do you do?" And I, thank God I'm well. But in May they're gonna add a floor to me. Or, "How do you do? I'm having some repairs done tomorrow." Or, "I'm almost burned down and I was so scared," and so forth. I have favorites among them. Some are intimate friends. One of them intends to be treated by an architect this summer. I'll make it a point to drop by every day so that, God forbid, they don't kill it in the process. But I will never forget what happened to a certain very pretty, light pink little house. It was such a sweet little stone house. It looked at me so cordially and so haughtily at its ungainly neighbors that my heart would rejoice when I had a chance to walk past. Suddenly last week, I was walking down the street and upon turning to look at my friend, I heard a plaintive cry. "But they're going to paint me yellow! The scoundrels! Barbarians! They spared me nothing, neither the columns nor the cornices, and my friend had turned as yellow as a canary. I almost had an attack of jaundice myself, and to this day I do not have the strength to see my poor disfigured friend who was painted the color of the celestial empire. Now you understand, reader, how I am acquainted to all of Petersburg. I already have said that for whole 3 days I was tormented with anxiety until I guessed the reason for it. And on the street I was in a bad way. This one's gone, where so and so got to. And I wasn't myself at home either. For 2 evenings I tried to put a finger on what it was I found wanting in my room. Why was I so uncomfortable staying there? And with bewilderment I examined my green, sooty walls and the ceilings from which hung a cobweb that Matryona had been cultivating with such resounding success. I looked over my furniture, examined every chair, wondering if that was the problem, because I'm not myself even if one chair isn't in the same place as it was the day before. I looked out the window, but it was all in vain. I didn't feel any better. I even took it to my head to summon Matryona and give her there, and then a fatherly reprimand for the cobweb and for her slovenliness in general. But she merely looked at me in amazement and walked away without a word in response, so that the cobweb hangs there safe and sound to this day. It was only this morning that I finally guessed what the matter was. Oh, why? They're all making off their dachas and leaving me behind. Forgive the trivial style, but I'm not up to lofty turns of speech. Because you see, everybody in Petersburg had either moved or is moving to their dacha. Because after hiring a cab, every vulnerable gentleman of a solid appearance was immediately transformed before my eyes into a venerable father of a family who, after his daily official duties, sets off without luggage to the bosom of his family at the dacha, because every passerby now has a quite special air about him, which all says to every person he meets, "Gentlemen, I'm only here in passing, but in 2 hours I'm leaving for my dacha." If a window opens, upon which slender fingers as white as sugar had just drummed, and out leans the head of a pretty girl who calls to a peddler with jug of flowers, I immediately there and then imagine that these flowers are being brought not simply so as to be taken pleasure in the spring and the flowers in a stuffy city apartment, but because everybody is moving to their dacha and they'll be taking the flowers with them. Moreover, I had already made such strides in my new special sort of discovery that I could already unerringly identify on the basis of appearance alone where their dacha was located. The residents of Kameny and Aptekarski Islands, or the Peterov Road, were distinguished by the studied elegance of their movements. Their foppish summer suits and handsome carriages had brought them to the city. The inhabitants of Pargolovo, and further out to a first glance inspired one, with their prudence and respectability. The visitor to Kretovsky Island was distinguished by his unruffled, cheerful air. Whether I managed to run in a long procession of carters, holding the reins as they lazily walked alongside their carts, loaded with whole mountains of furniture of every description, tables, chairs, couches, both Turkish and non-Turkish, and other household goods and chattels, on which, on top of everything, frequently would be sitting at the very summit of the load, the wizened cook, keeping watch over his master's good as the apple of her eye, which I looked at the boats heavily laden with household utensils, and as they glided down the Neva or Fontanka to Chernaya River or islands. The carts and boats increased tenfold, 100 folds before my eyes. It seemed as though everything had up and left. The whole caravans had moved to the dacha. It seemed that all of Petersburg threatened to turn into a desert, so that in the end I became ashamed, hurt and sad. I had also absolutely nowhere to go and no reason to go to a dacha. I was ready to leave with every car to drive off with every gentleman of the venerable appearance who was hiring a cab, but no one, absolutely no one invited me, and it was as if I was indeed a stranger to them. I had been walking a lot for a long time, and I had already completely succeeded, as was my wont, in forgetting where I was when I suddenly found myself at the city gates. I cheered up in an instant and stepped on the other side of the barrier, walked between the sown fields and the meadows, oblivious to any fatigue, but sensing with my being that some burden was being lifted from my soul. All the passers-by looked at me so cordially that we practically bowed to one another. Everybody so happy about something, every last one was smoking a cigar, and I was happy as I had been never before. It was as if I had suddenly found myself in Italy. Nature so strongly affected me, a semi-invalid city dweller who had almost died of suffocation within the city walls. There is something inexplicably touching in our Petersburg nature when, with the advent of spring, she suddenly displays all her might, all her powers granted her by heaven, when she bursts into leaves, dresses herself up, and decks herself out in beautiful colors. Somehow I can't help but be reminded of the weak and sickly girl at whom you sometimes look with pity, sometimes with a compassionate love, and sometimes you simply do not notice her. But then slowly, for a moment, she somehow unexpectedly becomes inexplicably wonderfully beautiful, and you, startled and intoxicated, unwillingly ask yourself, what power caused those sad, thoughtful eyes to shine with such fire? What summoned the blood in those pale, sunken cheeks? What has suffered those tender features of her face with passion? Why does that breast heave so? Why was it so suddenly summoned strength, life, and beauty to the poor girl's face that it began to shine with such a smile, came to life with such a sparkling, effervescent laugh? You look around, you search for someone, you hazard a guess, but the moment passes, and perhaps tomorrow you will again meet the same thoughtful and distracted gaze as before, the same pale face, the same submissive and timid movements, and even repentance, even traces of some sort of deadening melancholy and annoyance at the short-lived exhilaration, and you regret that momentary beauty faded so quickly, so irrevocably, that is flashed before you so deceptively and in vain. You regret this because there was no time for you to even fall in love with her. But nevertheless, my night was better than my day. Here's what happened. I arrived back in the city very late, and it had already struck 10 o'clock as I approached my apartment. My path ran along the embankment of the canal, where at that hour you will find not a living soul. True, I lived in a very remote part of the city. I was walking and singing, because when I am happy, I am sure to hum something to myself, like every other happy man who has neither friends nor good acquaintances, and who, in a happy, joyful mood, has nobody with whom he can share his joy. Suddenly, the most unexpected adventure happened to me. Somewhat to my side, leaning against the railing of the canal, stood a woman. With her elbows resting on the railings, she seemed to be looking very attentively at the canal's turbid water. She was wearing a very pretty yellow hat and a bewitching black mantilla. She's a young girl. She just has to be a brunette, I thought. It seemed she had not heard my steps. She didn't even stir when I walked past. With bated breath and with my heart beating violently. Strange, I thought. She must be completely absorbed by something. And suddenly I stopped, rooted to the ground. I had heard a muffled sob. Yes, I hadn't been deceived. The girl was crying, and a minute later there was another whimper and then another. My God, my heart sank. And no matter how great my timidness with women, this was hardly the time. I turned around, took a step in her direction, and would certainly have uttered the word "madam," for the fact that I knew the exclamation had already been uttered 1,000 times in all our Russian society novels. That was the only thing that stopped me. But while I was searching for a word, the girl came to her senses, glanced back, recollected where she was, cast her eyes down, and slipped past me along the embankment. I set off after her at once, but when she realized this, she quit the embankment, crossed the street, and set out walking down the pavement. My heart was fluttering, like a captured little bird. Suddenly, a certain incident came to aid. On the sidewalk across the street, not far from my unknown girl, there suddenly appeared a gentleman in an evening dress, a man with a solid number of years behind him, but whose gait was anything but solid. He walked reeling and carefully leaning against the wall. The girl meanwhile walked as straight as an arrow, hurriedly and timidly, as girls generally do when they don't want someone to offer to see them home at night. And of course, the teetering gentleman would never have caught up with her if my good fortune had not given him the idea of looking to unnatural methods. Suddenly, without saying a word to anyone, my gentleman darts off and flies as fast as his legs will carry him, and running, he catches up with my unknown girl. She was moving along with the wind, but the staggering gentleman was overtaking her. He had overtaken her, the girl cried out, and I thank my good fortune for my excellent naughty walking skills, which just happened to be in my right hand on this occasion. In an instant, I found myself on the sidewalk across the street. In an instant, the uninvited gentleman understood what was what, took into account my incontrovertible reasoning, fell silent and dropped behind. And only when we were already quite far away did he reproach me in rather energetic terms, but his words scarcely reached us. "Give me your hand," I said to the unknown girl, "and he won't dare bother us again." In silence, she gave me her hand, which was still trembling from nervousness and fright. And oh, unbidden gentleman, how grateful I was to you at the moment. I cast a cursory glance at her, and she was very pretty and a brunette. I had guessed right. On her black lashes still shone the tears of her recent fright or former sorrow, I don't know which, but on her lips a smile already sparkled, and also she cast a furtive glance at me, blushed, and looked down. "Now then, you see, why did you drive me away? If I'd been there, nothing would have happened. But I didn't know you. I thought that you do. But do you really know me now?" "A little bit. Now then, for example, why are you trembling?" "Oh, you guessed right from my very first," I answered, delighted that my girl was clever. That is never a bad thing where beauty is concerned. "Yes, you guessed from the very first glance the sort of person you're dealing with. Yes, it's true. I'm timid with women. I'm nervous, I won't deny it. No less than you were a moment ago when the gentleman frightened you. I'm frightened now. It's like a dream, but even in my dreams I never guessed that I would ever talk with a woman." "What? Really?" "Yes. If my hand is trembling, then it's because such a pretty small hand like yours has never clasped it before. I've grown quite unused to women. That is, I never became used to them, you see. I'm alone. I don't even know how to talk to them. Even now, I don't know whether I've said something stupid to you. Tell me frankly. I should tell you that I don't take offense easily." "No, nothing. On the contrary, and since you're already asking me to be candid, then I will tell you that women like such timidity. And if you want to know more, then I like it as well, and I won't send you away until we reach my home." "You'll make it so," I began, gasping with delight, "that at once I'll stop being my timid self, and then farewell, all my methods." "Methods? What sort of methods? For what?" "Now that's not very nice." "Guilty. I won't do it anymore." It was a slip of the tongue. But how do you expect me at a moment like this to have no desire? To be liked, is that it? Well, yes. For God's sake, be kind. Consider who I am. You see, I'm already 26 years old, but I don't see anyone. So then how can I speak well, cleverly, and to the point? It will be to your advantage if everything comes out in the open. I don't know how to keep when my heart is speaking inside me. Well, it doesn't matter. Believe it or not a single woman ever. No acquaintances at all. And all I dream of every day is that at last I will finally meet someone. Oh, if only you knew how many times I've fallen in love like that. But how? With whom? Why with nobody? With an ideal, with the one I see in my dreams. I create entire love stories in my dreams. Oh, you don't know me. It's true, of course. I couldn't help meeting 2 or 3 women. But what sort of women were they? They were all landladies or something like that. But I'll make you laugh when I tell you several times that I have thought of striking up a conversation just like that, without ceremony, with some aristocratic lady on the street when she's alone. It goes without saying to speak, of course, timidly, respectfully, deferentially, ardently, to say that I am perishing all alone, so that she wouldn't drive me away, that I don't have the means to get to know a woman, to suggest her that a woman is duty-bound, not spurn the timid entreaty of such an unfortunate man as I. That in the end, all that I'm asking her is for merely to say a few brotherly words to me, with sympathy, not drive me away at the very first moment. Now take me at my word, to listen to what I have to say, laugh at me if she likes, or to give me hope, to say a few words to me, just a few words, even if we never meet again afterwards. You're laughing. But then that's why I'm telling you. Don't be annoyed. I'm laughing at the fact that you are your own worst enemy, and if you had tried, perhaps you might have succeeded. Even though it was all talking place on the street, the simpler the better. Not a single kind-hearted woman, provided that she isn't silly or particularly angry about something at the moment, could have brought herself to send you away without those few words that you pleaded for so timidly. But what am I saying? Of course, she would have taken you for a madman. You see, I was judging by myself, but I know a lot about how people on this earth live. Oh, thank you, I cried out. You don't know what you've done for me today. Very well, very well. But tell me, how did you recognize me to be the sort of woman with whom you would consider worthy of attention and friendship and, in a word, not a landlady, to put it. Why did you make up your mind to approach me? Why? But you were alone, and that gentleman was too brazen. It's night now. You must agree that it was my duty. No. Even earlier there, on the other side. You wanted to approach me then, didn't you? There on the other side? But I truly don't know how to answer, I'm afraid. Do you know, today I was happy, I was walking, singing, I'd been on the outskirts of the city, I'd never experienced such happy moments before. It seemed to me perhaps, well, forgive me for reminding you, it seemed to me that you were crying and I couldn't bear to hear it, and it made my heart ache. Oh my God, surely I must have felt pangs of anguish for you. Surely it was not a sin to experience brotherly compassions for you. Forgive me, I said compassion. Well, yes, in a word, I could really have offended you by impulsively talking it in my head to approach you. Stop. Enough. Don't speak, the girl said, having cast her eyes downwards, squeezing my hand. I'm the one who's guilty for bringing it up, but I'm glad that I wasn't mistaken about you. But here, I'm already home. I need to go that way, down the lane. It's only a stone throws away. Goodbye. Thank you. But is it possible? Is it really possible that we shall never see each other again? Is it possible that we end like this? There, you see? The girl said, laughing. At first, you wanted just 2 words, and now, however, I won't say anything. Perhaps we'll meet. I'll come here tomorrow, I said. Oh, forgive me. I'm already making demands. Yes. You're impatient. You are practically demanding. Listen, I interrupted her. Forgive me if I can say something not quite, but here it is. I can't help coming here tomorrow. I'm a dreamer. I have a little real life that I regard such moments as this one now to be so rare that I can't help repeating these moments in my dreams. I will dream of you all night for an entire week, all year long. I will come here often without fail, exactly here, to this very spot, exactly at this time, and I'll be happy to recall what happened yesterday. This place is already dear to me. I already have 2 or 3 such places in Petersburg. Once I even shed tears because such a memory like you, who knows, perhaps 10 minutes ago, you too were crying because of a memory. But forgive me, I've forgotten myself again. Perhaps at the one time you were practically happy here. Very well, the girl said. Perhaps I will come here tomorrow, also at 10 o'clock. I see that I can't forbid you. The fact of the matter that I have to be here. Don't think that I'm arranging a meeting with you. I'm warning you in advance that I need to be here for myself. But you see, well, I'll tell you frankly, it wouldn't be nice if you did come in the first place. There might be some more unpleasantness like today, but that's besides the point. In a word, I simply like to see you, so I could say a few words to you. Only please, don't think ill of me now. Don't think that I arranged meetings so casually. I would have made one But let that be my secret. Only once we make an agreement in advance. An agreement. Speak. Tell me all beforehand. I'll agree to everything. I'm ready for anything, I exclaimed in delight. I'll answer for myself. I will be obedient, respectful. You know me. It's precisely because I do know you that I'm inviting you to come tomorrow, the girl said, laughing. I know you completely. But see, you come to the following condition. First, only be so kind as to do what I ask. You see, I'm speaking candidly. Don't fall in love with me. That's impossible, I assure you. I'm prepared to be your friend. Here's my hand. But falling in love is impossible, I beg you. I swear, I cried as I clasped her hands. Come, don't swear, you see. And I know that you're capable of flaring up like gunpowder. Don't condemn me for speaking like this. If only you knew. I also have no one with whom I can say a word, with whom I can ask advice. Of course, the street is not the place to look for advisors, but you're an exception. You know me so well. I know you so well, as if we had been friends for 20 years, and you wouldn't betray me, will you? You'll see. I don't know if I'm going to survive the next 24 hours. Well, good night. And remember that I have already put myself in your hands. But your exclamation just now put it so nicely. Must one really account for every feeling, even for brotherly feelings? Do you know that I was put so nicely that I suddenly thought that I might confide? By all means, what is it about? Until tomorrow, let it be a secret in the meantime. It will be better for you that way, although in a distance it will look like a love story. Maybe I'll tell you tomorrow, or maybe not. I'll talk with you a little bit more first. We'll get to know each other better. Oh, and tomorrow I'll tell you everything about myself. But what is this? It's as good as a miracle were happening to me. My God, where am I? Well, me. Aren't you glad that you didn't get angry, as another woman would have done, and drive me away from the beginning? 2 minutes and you have made me happy forever. Yes, happy. Who knows? Perhaps you have reconciled me with myself, resolved my doubts. Perhaps such moments overwhelm me. Well, I'll tell you everything tomorrow. You'll learn everything about me, everything. Very well, I accept. And you'll start first. Agreed. Goodbye. And we parted. I walked all night long. I couldn't make up my mind to go home. I was so happy. Until tomorrow. That was crazy. I definitely fell asleep at least 5 times while reading that, because it's just that late here right now. But also I definitely enjoyed it a lot. I would be honest that I have already read it halfway, at least page 50. I have 60, I guess, around 60. I did reach that point. It has a total of 100 odd pages, so around some 110, 112 pages, something like that, right? And this was written in 1873, and definitely I did find it interesting, but I wasn't paying enough attention, if that makes sense. Now when I'm reading for you guys, I have to read it out loud and make sure that every word that comes out of my mouth is actually making sense. So there's that responsibility, and I really enjoyed reading this. Do let me know if you enjoyed it too. If you want, I can actually do chapter 2, night 2, night 3, and we can actually do a full kind of like an audiobook thing here. But this was chapter 1 by White Nights for you. Do you feel like you'd read the rest of the book? Let me know down in the comments below, and please subscribe to the channel. It really means a lot. I appreciate it a lot. Bye bye.